The date is the 19th of August, 2026. I spent a lot of time self-improving, and then I went through a bit of a self-destructive period, and I couldn't quite figure out why I went into the self-destructive period. And I had to learn a lesson about self-improvement and kind of becoming a better person in general, or becoming who you want to be. It's not a one-time thing. It's not I can read self-help improvement books and go to the gym for 6 weeks and then I'm that person. And I thought that I could do them for a certain amount of period until they became a habit, and then I could kind of move on from them onto the next thing. And that's what I tried to do. I tried to move on from the self-improvement books and move on from the gym and move on from the kind of actions I was taking to improve my life. But I had only gotten to the point where it's beyond willpower and beyond environment. It got to the point where those are things that generally became easy for me to do. I could easily go to the gym, I could easily read my self-improvement books, and then I didn't see them as necessary anymore. And I kind of quit halfway through the process. It becomes something that you're trying out that's new, something it gets boring, it gets not easy, you gotta use a little bit of discipline, a little bit of self-control, and then it gets to the point where it's a part of your routine, and then it becomes like a habit you don't even think about, and then it starts to become part of who you are, part of the actions you take, and part of the thoughts you have. It becomes part of your personality, and it becomes who you are. And I thought quitting about halfway through, after it got part of my routine and it started to become a habit, it became easy. But this time around, when I make those commitments, I'm no longer going to see them as an end, or see them as a means to an end, not see them as a means to an end, see them as ends in themselves. And just use them kind of constantly instead of just trying to hit a point where I cannot do them anymore, do the self-improving things that I want to do. And that has been like the biggest thing I have learned from self-improvement since I figured out about habits and doing things over and over again until they're so easy, until they're part of who you are. I understood that, but I kind of saw it as actually, let me reword that. I didn't think, I thought reading books over and over again and going to the gym over and over again, I didn't see myself as someone who wanted to have a jacked body. And so I thought that going to the gym over and over again wasn't worth it for me. But I wasn't making having a jacked body who I was making discipline who I was, and actively showing that discipline through my body. And that's where I kind of lost the plot, where I was I didn't understand the true things I was actually building on. I thought that I was building a better looking body instead, and I made that video when I quit the gym. I said, I'm satisfied with how I look. I'm not really looking to change it, but I wasn't developing the skill of looking better. I was developing the skill of discipline, and that applies to the books and the reading. I wasn't developing the skill of reading books, or even always improving through self-improvement books. Sometimes it's just doing the act of doing something that I see as bettering for myself, taking the action of doing something that shows discipline will make me better at discipline, and taking the action of bettering myself through maybe a book that builds a new skill, that is something that I want to get better at, and I want that to become part of who I am, not just a skill I develop and then I don't have to do it anymore. I want that to become part of me. And one of the good things about this is I have all the work that I did in the past isn't instantly negated. It isn't instantly finished because I can pick up where I left off. Like how I said, I did actually develop that skill of going to the gym, and I did develop that skill of reading those books. It's not going to be super easy to pick up, but it's easier if I had never done them in the first place. So it doesn't get rid of all the progress I made before, and I can kind of just pick up where I left off. Of course, that also applies to bad habits, and that's why it was so easy to fall into that self-destructive period when I stopped doing that, when I stopped doing the good stuff, and that's why the bad stuff came back so easily. It's because the progress that I had made with the bad stuff, the habits I had built with the bad stuff, or unhealthy stuff, really just picked up where they left off, and which raises another problem, because obviously where they left off was around playing too much video games and doing a little bit too much drinking. But picking up where it left off, it progressed to different substances and different things and became more destructive. And I kind of understand when someone talks about feeding the good wolf or the bad wolf, you know, reinforcing the good behavior or the bad behavior. I kind of understand the concept of feeding the wolves, because they just stop growing where they are. But if you go back to feeding them, they're just going to get worse and worse. You know, it doesn't go back to baseline. But that's also good because your self-improvement doesn't go back to baseline, so it's easier to pick up when you want to recommit to it. And if you're committing for the first time, you know, you still probably have that passion, and that's still, it's less kind of an understanding of reality, and like reality isn't going to change unless I change it. It's probably still like the passion of I'm learning all these new things and it's improving my life, and that's a awesome place to be too. So no matter where you are, the act of improving, or I don't want to say improving because it sounds like something is worse off. The act of feeding the good wolf, feeding the good behaviors, feeding the life you want, feeding your goals, feeding who you want to become. The act of doing that becomes so much, is just the better alternative, you know? And it's very subjective, so it doesn't have to be a specific thing. It doesn't have to be going to the gym or reading good books, but you know, those are the skills that I developed, and I'd prefer to re-pick up on those skills than develop different ones. If I see something different that more correlates with my environment and my work schedule and things like that, then maybe I will pick that up instead. But honestly, it works. Like, I've done these things before, so I can just re-pick them up and recommit. But yeah, that's I'm trying to stand in the sun, because every time I leave the sun, it kind of like blackens my face out. But yeah, that's kind of it for this video. I'm just at the beach today. It's a nice, beautiful day. Yeah. But hopefully this helped a few people, and yeah, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.